Well, here we are somehow. I am still in the process of processing everything I'm feeling and fearing in this moment. Um, in fact, I haven't really had a chance to think about how I'm personally thinking and feeling all day, mostly because I have been reflecting on this outcome from the perspective of an astrologer, which, as you know, if you've been following along with me, I did issue a public prediction on the outcome of this election. Now, my election was very nuanced. There were certain elements of my prediction which did come to be, but when it comes to weighing the ultimate outcome, my prediction fell flat. So, like many of you, I'm sitting here wondering, what did I miss? What went wrong? What can I learn from this? And from the start, I knew that this was a risk to put out there, and I weighed the risks with care. I said, is this something I need to do? Is this something I want to do? And I felt really energized by the challenge of solving a very complicated puzzle. I love puzzles. I have always been a puzzle fanatic. And I was very excited to try my hand at every technique at my disposal, which I don't normally have the space to do in a client consultation. And I was really thrilled by this. I thought this is an opportunity for me to really flex some of my muscles and let's just see. And if I don't get it right, I don't get it right. I, more than anything, just want to try and see if I can. I also approached it as an experiment. I'm using pretty highbrow techniques. Can I predict something like this? Or is the influence of the collective much more massive than I can anticipate? And that's one of the big things I'm left with thinking about is, a lot of the times the transits that are happening in a person's chart can be very subjective. In other words, you have to use other techniques a lot of the time to see if something is definitely going to come to pass. And I'm using this example of Kamala Harris's transit of Saturn through her 10th house. Like that, Saturn through the 10th house could just as easily be getting fired, doing a job that you absolutely hate, doing a job that is a ton of labor, but there's massive payoff. In her case, it might be a crushing defeat, or it could have just as easily have been taking the helm of the highest office under difficult circumstances. So something like that you can't look at just alone and make a decision on. You have to consider a ton of other factors, which I thought I was doing. I thought Trump's solar return was describing his legal woes for sure, looks like a very challenging year. Vance's solar return was not looking very favorable. But something historically that my teachers always talked about is that sometimes difficult transits don't deny success. They just show your experience of what you're feeling and experiencing in that year. And that's so true. I have seen that play out so much over the years that sometimes, I've talked about this a lot with my students, how a Jupiter transit can sometimes be someone passing away, someone who lived a long, full life, suffering, and it was just their time, and it's the exhale, it's the relief. So transits are not always the best go-to in order to judge definitively what's going to happen. A lot of the time it's describing a person's experience. Sometimes it can be event related, but it's not always money in the bank. It's not always definite. It's not always something you can count on. Sometimes it is event related. Like when Donald Trump had Uranus on his midheaven and there was an assassination attempt that he narrowly survived. Like, wow, what a Uranian event. But more so, what I'm really reflecting on right now is the collective, like the collective terrain, and how the landscape, the celestial landscape of, let's say, like the outer planets and things like that, show a collective readiness of what we're going to experience. And how I did look at that, but there was other things I probably could have considered a little bit more. Like, for example, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction coming up. That's one that typically corresponds with like a collective disappointment. That's one that typically leans more toward conservatism with a religious tonality to it. So when I'm seeing the growing flocking toward Christianity, I'm seeing it, like spiritual people going in that direction who were astrologers and were tarot readers, but now they have found a home with a Christian faith. That's part of that experience. That's part of that transit. Also seeing the rise of Christian nationalism, putting Bibles in classrooms, draconian abortion bans, that kind of thing. That is something we could attribute to that Saturn-Neptune conjunction, that they're co-present right now. Like, that is something that we are increasingly feeling and we're going to be increasingly dealing with over the next 6 years. Well, we're about halfway through it. So maybe like 4 more years. So stuff like that is going to also help decide what the collective is ready for. I mean, my husband, he hates when I quote him, but we were talking about it this morning. We're like, how did this happen? And he said something so poignant. He said, it just shows that the good guys don't win. It just shows that you can come in and take what you want and be a fucking asshole, and the world hands everything to you. And I thought, Neptune and Aries, babe, you're so wise. Like, that's what we're coming into, is Neptune and Aries. That's what's next. Neptune and Aries is the rebel. And Donald Trump getting elected once again proves that he is the anti-hero of American politics. Like, nobody thought that this was possible. No, well, I mean, his believers did, his followers did, but you have Republicans left and right endorsing Harris. You have, like his own cabinet and vice president from before wouldn't endorse him. This is emblematic of something else that's happening, a bigger movement. And it's Neptune and Aries favors the rule followers, those who are brazen, those who might come in and say, fuck you, I'm doing it a different way, I'm not following the rules. It's kind of punk rock, actually. And I just saw an article the other day saying, yeah, punk rock is back, but it looks completely different. And they're just showing like Trump supporters. So yeah, currently I'm just thinking about what I can learn from this experience. Do I regret going public with my prediction, even though it ultimately fell flat at the end? No, I don't. I'm actually really proud of the scholarship and research that I put into this. I am still feeling energized by the body of work I created, even if it wasn't ultimately on point at the end. Do I wish it was? Yes, for multiple reasons. But yeah, I'm proud of what I did. I'm proud of the work that I did, and I am eager to be able to have more opportunities to do research like that and to try my hand at this again and again and again, because that's why astrology is ruled by Mercury and Saturn, is that Mercury, it's like techniques and endless curiosity. You have to always be curious. You have to always be curious. And that's what I went into this with is, what can I learn? What can I take away from this? And secondly is Saturn. It takes time. It takes time to master something. It takes time and effort and continuously showing up and being patient with our observation to get good at something. So I'm taking the Saturn on this. Like, I'm just like, all right, I'm humble. What can I learn from this? So I'm still in contemplation about this, but I did post some more of my reflections on my website, just doing like a text follow-up there for people who've been following me on this journey, who have been following my work. I'm grateful for all of you. Many of you just like immediately made my endeavor feel worthwhile just based on saying how much gratitude and respect that you had for my thoroughness in my research. So I appreciate that. But I'm also here like, is this something that can be predicted with astrology alone? That was my main goal. Can astrology alone predict the outcome of an event this huge? And when I looked at the charts side by side, adding everything up, taking in all the techniques into consideration, hold on, I gotta fix my hair. There were things that looked both favorable for both candidates. There were things that looked really challenging for both candidates. But ultimately, there was just like a couple things about Harris's forecast that made me lean toward her. And ultimately, another thing that I'm sitting with that I didn't take into consideration when I'm looking at these charts and I'm striving to stay neutral, I'm striving to stay objective, and I'm looking at the charts like, let me just read the charts for the charts and see which one looks more supportive. What I did not take into consideration is where America is at culturally. I did not take into consideration race or gender, because those things do not show up in a birth chart. So I did not take those things into consideration. And it made me think so much about how to reach the same success as a white man, let's say a straight white man in America, everyone else has to exude that much more excellence in order to be considered, in order to receive the same pay, in order to receive the same accolades. And I know everyone hates hearing that. Everyone hates hearing that, especially white people, but it is true. And when I think about that, running parallel and influencing an astrological judgment like this, it bums me out. It bums me out. Like, should I have looked at it differently? Like, oh, Harris's chart has to look that much better in order to make her look like she has a win over this guy. And I know, there's criticisms on both sides. There's criticisms for Harris's involvement with Gaza and supporting Israel with weapons. And similarly, though, there's a ton of criticism for Trump. He is a convicted felon, sex offender, you name it, like made all of our taxes really high, but a lot of people don't realize that. Anyways, there's criticisms on both sides. So I'm not even factoring that in. On paper, though, I feel she was more qualified. But yet, I look at their charts stacking up pretty similarly. And should I have taken into consideration gender? Should I have taken into consideration race? Should I have taken into consideration the backdrop of American culture right now and where it's leaning? Yeah, I should have. So this is a big learning. I'm going to continue to reflect on this. I'm grateful for the opportunity to share. I'm grateful that, y'all are still here and supporting this work. And, as astrologers, we should take the chance. We should predict. It's a good exercise. It's not always going to work out in our favor because we are not all knowing. It's important to stay humble when doing this type of work because we always have to leave room for the possibility of the unknown, for the possibility of the infinite creative power of the universe. We do not have all of the options displayed conveniently before us. Our job is to gather each of the stellar influences and create a collage that looks the most lifelike and possible to form our predictions. It's not easy. We're not always going to get it right, but keep trying. And that's all I got for right now. The purpose of this was just an astrological reflection. But yeah, please take care of yourselves. I know I just want to spend more time with my kids and my family as I process this as a blue voting Ohioan. So everyone, please take care of yourselves. And I look forward to connecting with you again soon.